Welcome to part 3 of the end-to-end PyScript tutorial series. We're going from strength to strength here because in part 1 we learned about the PyScript syntax, the things that it brings to the table, and we learned enough HTML to actually trial that, create some cool Python mini projects in the browser. And then in part 2 we deploy our PyScript app using the NBLite project, and we built a code notebook explorer, something like a cooler version of Google Colab, and we deploy that onto GitHub pages so we can get free hosting, free continuous delivery through GitHub Actions. So today we're going to build a PyScript app that brings in Altair and have an interactive dashboard that we'll deploy again onto GitHub pages. I've used Altair and it's my favorite library since I first built with Altair. I'm going to show you a little bit about what you can do with it. But I started using Altair since I think September 2018. Even before that, I think maybe in August I was playing around with it. But I really fully deployed an app here in August 2018, so that's about 4 or 5 years ago now. And I'll show you what you can do with it, right? These are all like visualizations. There's the dashboard. We're going to make it interactive so you can sort of like hover around this. This is called a brush actually. We're going to go into talk about that when we start to build it out later when I write the code for you, right? And then there's a lot of other kind of visualization you can do. There is this thing called a Visual Explorer. This is really cool because you can, for example, I can find my name here. I can check on a few names. I can click on a few more. And notice what would happen is, let me check on a few more. I can hover across this, and you see that the region, you look the other charts also react to that, right? For example, if I hover around this area, I can see how things are going to change here. You can hold on the shift key to basically select multiple of them. And we're probably not gonna build out the whole dashboard like that, but I just want to show you what I've done with it in the past. But what I wanted to say is that every time I have to build a web app in Python that has some sort of visualization or some sort of dashboarding component, I default easily back to Altair. And you can check out the full series on my channel, starting from part 1 to part 2, part 3. This is part 3. I'll also leave links to all 3 of them in the description. But as always, we'll deploy this app onto GitHub, and I'll paste a link to the demo so you can try it out yourself. You should subscribe if you want to follow along the journey where we build some awesome stuff using PyScript. And definitely let me know in the comment section if you have interesting ideas you want me to pursue for this series. Your work counts twice if you're a subscriber. Alright, so let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into Altair. Let's go ahead and use PyScript and Altair for part 3 of the end-to-end PyScript tutorial series. Okay, just like in part 2, we're not going to dive into a lot of the syntax and stuff. If you want those basics, you should start from the part 1 and then put a bookmark in here and then come back to this when you're done with that. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead now and just do a lot of what you've seen me done over the series. I'm just going to go ahead and create a directory. I'm going to try to make directory. I'm going to say PyScript dashboard. A lot of this you've seen me done that already, so this shouldn't come as a something new to you. I'm just gonna open that up in code, so just do that. If you want to just do everything with the mouse, you can as well. You just have to say open folder. You can go into desktop and then click on that one, PyScript dashboard, say open, and you have this open up. You know it from here. You can also just pwd just to print that out. All right. And then go ahead and just create a new file. Doesn't matter what you call it. I can call it sort of index.html. It's a good name, so just do that. Once you're in there, remember how I told you about the emmet thing? Like you have this emmet abbreviation. So you can just put an exclamation mark and just hit tab. It would just give you the sort of the skeletal. And all you need to do is to hit tab again twice because you need to skip towards the document. And here you can just say PyScript x Altair. You can go ahead right away, just open with live server if you want to now. And it will open that up in a browser. Let's bring that out. Okay, and you will see that if I'm using Visual Studio Code, I'm starting this server at port 5501 because the other port is taken. You will need a live server for a big part of this tutorial. You cannot use a script file as a module without using a server. So export and imports in JavaScript only works on server, and they do not work on local machines. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, just go ahead and just do the installation already. Just search for live server and just install the first one, this one. But if you want to use another IDE and you don't have the same access to this, then just go ahead and use the Node module. Download just do an npm install HTTP server. So npm install -g HTTP server, or if you want to, you can use the Python 3 module. You can say Python 3 and then put a -m to say module, and then just launch HTTP server as well. So there's a lot of other choices where you want to, pick one that works for you. If you don't know how to do that, go to the earlier videos. I'll show you how to do that. But essentially, what you need to do is to just say -g and then do a HTTP server. That's all you need to do, right? Now that we have that opened up, there is nothing on the browser, and that's fine because we did not have anything. We only have a title. And that's good enough. So let's actually go and bring in our scripts. So we've done this before countless times already, so this shouldn't be new to you now. You can just do a link, and then it just gives you a emmet. Just click hit tab, and then just bring in the URL like so. And then you want to do the same thing for script. So you want to say script, and here you want to say source And you want to do exactly the same thing as well. So paste that in, except this is not CSS, this is JavaScript, JS, right? We're going to use defer. So we explained about this in other videos already in earlier parts of this series. So I'm not going to go into that. And typically you can now start off with, like, what I like to do usually is I like to set up my py-env. So this is your dependencies, right? This is how we define dependencies. All the libraries that you need in order to run your project. So these are all your Python dependencies, whether or not you can create a new file here and call your Python script. Sort of like this would be our main index.py if you want to call it that way. And we can put our scripts in here. But everything that you call in here, for example, you want to sort of like import matplotlib as the pyplot as plt. If you want to do that, then you want to put matplotlib in here. All right. So let's not have anything in here yet. In fact, we may not even just yeah. Let's just keep that there. All right. So let's see if we want to refactor that, we can bring that out into index.py. For now, let's not worry about that right now. And we're gonna go ahead and say, what do we need? Now, I told you earlier that we're gonna use Altair, so let's do that, right? And we're gonna start from Altair. We're also probably gonna need pandas. Very likely we need pandas. Very unlikely that you do anything without pandas, knowing that this is a data analytics dashboarding, dealing with data and stuff. Well, we also need some data sets. So I'm gonna use Vega datasets. This comes with Altair. If you do a pip install Altair, you should get Vega dataset. So if you do a pip install, actually let me just work on analyze, and you do a pip install Altair, you should go ahead and do that. But if you don't have that, then just go ahead and pip install, do a Vega datasets, and just go ahead and do that. Then once you're done, go ahead into Python, and let's go ahead and say from Vega datasets import data. And you see that they actually don't really import data, because if I show you what we have, for example, I type movies and the URL, it basically just gives me this URL. And if you click into this, let me just copy that and open that up in the browser. Because I'm using Firefox, it's amazing. It gave me this, it rendered this nicely in a JSON using the JSON renderer, and I can open the first one, I can open the second one. So I'm just gonna keep these two so I know, what exactly is in there, right? So we can use the title, we can use the release date and stuff. So for example, genre is going to be interesting to us. IMDb rating is going to be interesting. We're going to try and compare that to Rotten Tomatoes rating. We want to see like what kind of movies does really well across IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, and what kind of genre would they be, what kind of sales would they get in terms of US sales and then worldwide gross, right? So now that you've done this, you know this can be done in the Python terminal. So you just have to copy, sort of bring that back into your Python script as well. So let's go ahead and maybe do that. So we do it by calling PyScript, right? And there is one way you can use PyScript. And one way you can use PyScript is you can actually have a div here. We're going to call this div, let's call it dashboard, because we're going to build a dashboard. And then what we can do is we can say the output of this goes to dashboard. Pretty cool, eh? So whatever we write in here, they're just going to be taken and then extracted and then pass it back into the div. In fact, to clean this up a little bit, we're going to move py-env into the head, right? We're going to move it like this and gonna fix the indentation. And let's maybe clean up things a little bit, make it prettier. So let's just go and say exploring movies, or let's say IMDb movies dataset, right? With PyScript. I'm gonna make our love, take the love emoji, add it in here as well, save that. Because we don't have any style sheets, this is not looking good. You can add a CSS, I guess you can do that, but just to keep things fast and simple, I'm just gonna add an inline style. So if you want to refactor that, if you know how to do it with CSS, go ahead and do that. Just have to add another source, link, release sheet, style sheet, and then just add custom.css and then add a new custom CSS here. This is not really a CSS video, I don't want to do that, but okay, this is good enough. It looks a little bit overkill, but we'll stick with that. We're cool with that, all right? And then now we just have to bring this PyScript, we just have to continue to develop this PyScript, because whatever we bring in here, so we just have to do the same thing as what we have here. So what do we have here? We have from Vega datasets import data. So let's do that. Let's say from Vega datasets import data. What else do we need? We will need Altair. That's almost certainly the first thing we want to do, because otherwise, what are we going to use to generate the dashboards, right? To develop the dashboard. So import Altair as ALT. And then what else did we do? We said data.movies.url, right? So this is where the data frame is going to be from. So you can either call this source. Typically, you can call it source, but just to be clear here, because this is a kind of a tutorial, a lot of you have not used Altair before, I'm going to say df. So usually I'll call it source, right? So this, I'm just going to say movies.url. So just be aware that this is not loading any kind of data frame. This is just a simple sort of URL to a JSON. So in fact, if you want to, you could just import the request and just sort of use request to get that. But we're not gonna do that either, right? And then let's talk a little bit about Altair. Now, Altair, what is this? So it's a declarative visualization in Python. Let me bring this up a little bit larger so you can see it from here. So Altair is a library. It says this is a declarative statistical visualization library for Python based on Vega and Vega Lite, and the source is available on GitHub. And it's very semantic, which is kind of why I like it. Coming from ggplot, this will look very similar. If you have any idea about what ggplot is or have used ggplot in the past, then this will look very, very familiar. But if you don't, that's fine. Let me just show you some examples, maybe some simple bar chart. All right, so you see that there is a data frame. You say pd.dataframe, and then there is a data frame. There's a column called A, there's a column called B, and then what you need to do is to, this is kind of like ggplot because you say mark bar. You can also say mark line, mark a point, mark text. So you can change this bar to text, to point, to line, any kind of geometry, right, that makes sense that is in the documentation in here. And then you just have to encode. You said for the x-axis, you want that to map to the A column. For the y-axis, you want to map to the B column. And that's kind of how you do encoding. And then bam, it generates this. All right, so it's really, really quite amazing. This may be overkill. I may have to change that to 2.5 EM. All right, that's probably good enough. Maybe remove the word data set just to keep it shorter. So let's go ahead and do something like rect. That's rectangular. You can name it anything, right? This is just a variable, Python variable. And we're going to say altair.chart. Here you want to pass in data source, so df. A lot of this will look very familiar to you if you've done any kind of work with R, ggplot, and those kind of visualization systems, very grammar of graphic systems. So now what do you want here? What do you want here? So let's try mark. Let's try mark line, right? Actually, what do we have in example? Let's take a look. We have mark bar. So let's try mark bar, and then we can sort of develop from there. And then we set encoding, just kind of like what we see in the documentation in here, but it has X and Y, right? So for the X, what do we want in the X? Now, if you look at the JSON, you see that there are a ton of columns here, a ton of variables here. So what do we want here? Let's maybe pick IMDb rating, all right? So let's go ahead and say for the X-axis, I'm gonna say Altair X. So you can say X equals to Altair X, but we're not gonna even do that. We're just gonna use positioning. So positioning Altair X, and the name of this. So I don't want to misspell this. I want to make sure that this is IMDb capital and then underscore and then capital R, right? So let's do that correctly. Let's say IMDb underscore rating. And then what is this? What is this column? Is this a quantity or is this a numeric? Is this an integer string? Whatever it is, right? So what is this? This is actually a quantity, right? So we want to put capital Q here. Now, if this is confusing, you can read the documentation. Maybe if you want to, if a lot of you request for it, I can do a more drawn out Altair tutorial in the future, but just to sort of jump to where it matters. So if the data is a quantitative data, then you want to have Q. That's a continuous real valued quantity. Ordinal is just O, nominal is just N, temporal is just time, T, so that's for time series, GeoJSON is just G. That's really all there is to it. All right. Like I said, if you're really interested in that, I may just remember to subscribe, because if I launch a more full-blown, like a 2 or 3 hours tutorial focusing on Altair, we talk about all of that in details. Today's video is not really fully about that. It's really just about getting PyScript to work, create a dashboard, and then deploy that. So we're not gonna have a lot of time to go through that. All right. But for those of you who want it, just hit the subscribe button. So when I launch new videos, you're gonna be the first to know. All right. I'm gonna swing this down back, and I'm gonna go back to my PyScript. You can also have a Y, just like you can also have Y equals, but we're not gonna even have that. We're gonna just positional, just to really speed things up a little bit, right? Let's go back to this and let's find another one. Let's find a Rotten Tomatoes rating, all right? This is also a quantitative, so it's gonna be very similar to that. So you're just gonna copy this and gonna change the Rotten, let me spell it correctly, underscore tomatoes rating. And one thing about Altair is that you can bin it if you want to. You can say bin equals to true. I'll show you what it looks like later, but for now I'll just keep it on. I'll show you what it looks like when I turn it off later. And then you can then map a color to it if you want to, but if you don't want to, this is probably good enough. Let's go ahead and just print that out, just rec, right? Because we name it rec. And let's go back to our PyScript app. I see that I misspelled something here. So that is why nothing comes out, because it doesn't find this column, right? So if I spell it correctly now, then it should show the right plot. Let's take a look. Okay, we can make this better. Yes, so let's go ahead, maybe add a color. So odd color value, and just pass it as Dodger blue. Just try and get this to work first. I guess that will do, but this is not interactive yet, is it? What we want to do is we want to actually have this be interactive, right? So the way we can do that is to create a brush. So let's go ahead and name it a brush, and we say odd selection dot maybe selection underscore interval. This, I believe, is exactly the same as if you were to do something like odd dot selection, and you say type equals to interval. This is also the same. Kind of like one is maybe shorter than the other, but it's up to you. So we're gonna just stick with this, and then what you can do is, instead of actually having everything as the same color, what we'll do is we can sort of like have a condition. So odd, every time you see odd, is basically just from Altair, right? So because we said this is import Altair, but we give it an alias of odd. So this is all just Altair.x, Altair.y, Altair.condition. So you probably want to read that like that in your mind, except I'm just going to call it odd. And then here you just, because I name it brush, I want to say brush. And then there's a true, there's a false. So what happens if it's true, what happens if it's false? So for example, I can say the color should be mapped to, let's copy this again, just to save ourselves some time. The color should be mapped to this when the brush is true. And when it's false, I don't know, give it a color. I don't know, let's just give it a color value. I believe you can also type value now. So let me just type value instead of color value. And light gray. And let's save that. Okay, it says that there is an error because we did not add selection. So I want to add selection and brush. So this brush is going to be brought in here. And so we can actually start to brush on top of our graphic. All right. And now I believe we can go ahead. Yep. Yeah, it's looking good. So the color is going to be gray out because that's the alternate. This is if the brush is not true, that means anything outside of the brush area, then it's just going to be gray. And then if it's true, then go ahead and give it that. But you can try and change and play around with those things. Actually, you want to maybe say something like, let's say odd dot value, and I guess we can have something like golden rod. Just save that. Yes, we did included an unnecessary mark there, so take that quotation mark away. Yeah, so now it's saying that if you hover across, now it's true, and if you don't, then it's just gonna be false. So you can do all kind of things here. This looks really ugly right now. I'm just gonna go back to the earlier one. That's kind of what we want. And I guess I need to set the bin to be true here as well, because then they will just be bin instead of having them as a continuous value, just gonna be a lot of value. They're just gonna be bin, and this should look much better. Yeah, this looks a lot better, I think. I'm kind of happy with this now. Right, so let's keep it there. Let's maybe create a text here, a row of sort of like a table if you want to, but it's not really a table. But if you want to think of it as a table, you can, and with some styling, you can make it look like a table. So I want to be able to say something like, when I hover across this, I want to see the movie titles that are actually in here, because these are pretty good. These are when the IMDb rating is around 7 to 10. So let's say something like here. And then the Rotten Tomatoes is above. Rotten Tomatoes is kind of hot sometimes. They kind of an ass sometimes. They don't give you very high ratings, even if the movie is good. So this area here, this quadrant here is gonna be the movies where IMDb rating is close to 7 to 10, and Rotten Tomatoes is around 40 to 100, which is kind of my benchmark for when a movie is worth watching. Anything that has a 40 and above on Rotten Tomatoes, they're good, right? If you disagree, you should let me know why you disagree in the comments. but for me, if you have a movie and the rating is lower than 40, not worth watching. Anything above 40, it's all fair game. All right, so let's go ahead now, and you know how we did the mark bar? I want to show you what happened here if you change the mark bar to something like mark line. And let's save that. You see it becomes a line. What happened if I change that to be a point? You see that now it becomes a point, but still you can still do the same selection brush, right? And the selection brush will still give you the color when it's hover over. When it's not, it's just gonna be just nothing, right? Just great. And you can change all of these values if you want to. I'm gonna push all of this to GitHub, and you can experiment with that, right? And now I want to maybe have this have a table on the side. Not really a table, but we can make it look like a table. So I'm going to go ahead and say text. Whoops, text. And same thing as above. I'm just going to have the Altair chart. So alt chart. What kind of data source? Same thing. So df. And I'm going to have mark text. So just to show you what mark text looks like. And I'm going to say encode. Kind of the same thing up here above. Instead, now I need to first worry about how they display. So on the y-axis, I want them to display along, let's say, row number. So let's take a look at this. Do we have row number? We don't have row number. So we can actually use transform to sort of transform and create a row number. So we can just go ahead and say y equals to, we don't need that y equals to now. Or actually we do, because if not, it would treat that as x. So let's say y equals to alt y. And we're going to say row number. Now we don't have row number, so we're going to have to create that on the fly. Altair is really cool like that. It can allow you to do that. And we set x is equals to none. But what we need to do, remember, is we need to come to this transform. And we say transform window. And then we just have to create a row number just to give it a row number because it doesn't exist in our data set, right? So let's go ahead and do that on the fly. Row number equals to row number. Then you have the brush. You want to be able to say that every time I highlight an area, I want that to also filter the row number. So it should only appear it should only be the kind of the movies that are in this region. So how do you filter for only the movies that are in this region, in this brush region? So to do that, you say transform filter. So transform filter, and then what do you name your brush? You name it brush. So we're just gonna call it brush. And then I also don't want to print out the entire thing because what if it's too huge? What if it's a lot of data, right? So it's probably not wise to do that. Let's actually change this back to bar first. So I want to be able to maybe just filter for, let's say, the top 20 or yeah, let's say top 20. Top 20 is fine. So let's go ahead and say another one. Let's say transform window again. And within this, we're going to say create something called rank. We don't have rank, but we're just going to create that. And we're going to say rank. That's just going to take the row number. All right. So it's just going to say, okay, take the row number, which we don't have, and we create up here. And we're going to just create rank. And then we just have a transform filter again. So we again do another filter. Hopefully all of this makes sense. If you've done any kind of like visualization libraries or visualization systems using R or Python, this should come as not too difficult. But let's just maybe make it 20 like this. It turns out that my internet connection just dropped off, so I just have to refresh the page and it works again. So, and the reason why I need that is because of the loading up here, right, the PyScript. If I want to, I could absolutely just go ahead and just download a copy of that so that I don't have to worry about this. So I can just copy that, get up here, and I can just save off that. That way, I could just, instead of having this, I could just link to my local so that I don't have to worry about the internet dropping off again. And you probably want to do the same thing for the style sheets. So now it just make it a local file. Okay, now it works. Same thing, I guess. So I don't know if there is ever a reason for you to want to do that, you can. For me, I'm just gonna keep it like that just in case. But there you go. So it's really not a problem with the spaces or anything like that, right? But we actually have text here, and let's go ahead and add something. Let's maybe add the ratings. And we do that by going to text, and we can go ahead and say, what about we just look at the Rotten Tomatoes rating? And this is a Q, quantitative. We save that. It's not going to render because we don't put anything on text yet. We only have rect. So one way you can do that in Altair is you can use this very declarative way of declaring how you want that to appear. So if I want them to appear side by side, I can just put a pipe and I can put text, which is really, really cool. So let's do that. I'm going to put a pipe here to say that, okay, put rect on the left and then put text to the right. So this is kind of just a way for you to just sort of format that out. Kind of a nice little handy way of doing that. Okay, let's take a look at that. If we scroll around, let's say take a look at this. We can now see, we will now see the Rotten Tomatoes rating. We see that this when the Rotten Tomatoes rating 77, 81, 76, so on and so forth, right? And if you scroll around this area, you can see these are the ratings. What if you want to have this and then you want to have the movie name as well? Because this is kind of not useful. I mean, this is pretty bad. This is horrendous. There are movies that has a Rotten Tomato ratings of 3 or 4 or 3. These are horrendous. But we want to actually know what movie is that, so we know never to go to that movie, right? So how do we do that? Well, you may be tempted to actually copy and paste and do another one. So sort of like take a text and then just take that and then copy and then put a text to or something like that. But that's not really good practice, because now every time you change something, you want to change everywhere, and also it's not really nice and you're just repeating yourself too much. So what you can do is to take away this sort of text, take it out, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it a rating. We're gonna call this ratings. And what we're going to do is we're going to say take the text up here, but modify the encoding. So override the encoding, and we do that by just writing what we want to overwrite in here. So it will still inherit the y, so we don't have to change that, but we want to add the text, which is what we copied, I think. Yep. So let's have that here, and now we can change that to ratings, right? And if we save that, now it should look okay. In fact, if you want to have the movie name, we can also have movie name just like that. And you can say text.encode, and now you want to have a different one. Let's take a look at what gave us that. I think it's called what? Movie name, title. It's called title, right? So we want to call it title. So title, this is just going to be nominal, right? Just a character string, right? So title, and we are going to put it side by side as well. So we can say movie name. Very, very simple. And there we have it. So if you look at this, these are Braveheart, Casino, Dances with Wolves, Forrest Gump, Gandhi, JFK. And these are really good movies because they have a very high Rotten Tomatoes rating, and they also have very high IMDb rating. But if you look at movies that are here, these are movies that you should avoid at all costs. Instead of paying for the movie, you should actually get paid to watch those movies. So you have like crossover. I don't think any one of us have heard of this. I don't know. Maybe you have. Matahari sounds like an Indonesian or Malaysian kind of film. I don't know. But Baby Geniuses, Barney. They managed to make a bad movie using Barney. All right. So those are how you have your sort of your Rotten Tomatoes rating. This is that. All right. Cool. Let's actually add a bar at the bottom. Add a bar chart at the bottom, right? So this is on the top row. This is the first row. Then we want to have something at the bottom. So okay, this is still working. This is good. Now let's go ahead. Now there are tags here. There's the ratings. There's movie names here. So I'm gonna actually open up here. This is after the rec. I'm gonna say bar. Or actually maybe put them below because this is all the first row. And something here, right? Somewhere here. I want to say bar, and I want to say alt.chart, which is very similar to what you see up there. So alt.chart, and then I'm gonna call df, and then here, if you put mark, there are again you can have mark point. You can have all these different things. We can actually try that. Okay, just go ahead and do an encode, and we can say x equals to, now let's try something else. Let's go ahead and find, we said we want to talk about the major genre, so let's try major genre now. Let's say major underscore genre, and genre would be a nominal. And what about y? Now y, we just want to count that. We just want to count that because it's going to be a bar chart, right? So we want to say y equals to, instead of actually giving anything, we want to say count. So this is similar to how you call the row number function and how you call the rank function. So these are all handled by Altair. So row number, rank, and count, these are things that when you use the Altair system, you have to learn them. So I'm going to save that now, and let's go back and see what we have in our dashboard. Okay, obviously nothing because we didn't actually even put them anywhere. Let's put them next to each other and call bar because we name it bar here, and let's see what happened. Okay, now we have, okay, because we call it point, we're going to have point. Which I guess is not too bad, but we really don't want that. What if we try line? Save that. Then we want to name this line. But let's just keep it there. Oh, we have line here. But again, this is really not what we want, right? If you want to, you could just call it line and then just call it line like that. Then you can name it line like that. But really what you want is a bar. So let's go ahead and create a bar. And I'm going to say mark bar. Okay, now I'm going to put all of this into its own, and now I'm going to say and bar. And now what do you have? Let's bring that up a little bit more. A cool looking bar. Great. By the way, all of these are just shorthand. If you don't want to use this, another way you can do that is to just use the alt, and then this is the shorthand, but this really gives you the same effect as you doing something like v concat, which stands for vertical concat, and then you just have to pass in this area, this chunk here. So this is vertical concat, and then you just have to make sure you close the quotation, and then there is the bar here at the second one, so we want to say bar. Now this will just vertically concatenate them. So this one at the top and then this one at the bottom, concatenate them vertically. So vertically, that's V. If you want to have them horizontally, you want to put h concat. This is actually the same as putting, I guess this is the same as odd.h concat, and then you just have to put each one of them line by line, right? But I guess we just have to stick to one. We don't have to use both systems. If you want to, another way you can do that, you can improve your chart is to just resolve the legend. And I want to say that treat all the color independently. And I want to say size, also treat them independently. So independent, right? And now the dashboard is coming along quite nicely. Okay, so this is still going to react to that. All right, cool. Fun with Dick and Jane. Look at that. Fun with Dick and Jane. 29. No wonder. What if I want to make this something that I can click on? For example, I want to click on this. These bars here, I want to be able to do something with that. You can use the same brush system. So remember in the brush system, we use something like, let's see, odd.selection interval, right? You can also have something, let's call it points, PTS, okay? And we're going to say the same thing, odd.selection. This is actually just selection. I told you this is basically just the same as type interval. This is the same. So here you want to have type equals to single. I want to say encodings equals to x. So that's on the x-axis. We did not spell that correctly, so it's telling us that there is no attribute selection. You want to get down to bar, and because this is a selection, you want to add that selection. Just like how you did add the selection for the brush, you use the add.selection brush, you want to do the same thing. So we can just copy that and go the way here to bar and just add selection. This time I'm going to call it PTS because that's what we name it. So save that. And now that we have the points, we can try to add a circle now. Actually, let's remove the brush. We probably don't need the brush. I mean, we've already seen how well you can do with it, so we don't need the brush anymore. We don't want a brush now. Instead, what we want, let's see if we still use brush anywhere. We have the text. Okay, so if we click on this now, okay, so there we go. Alright, this works too. So we take away the brush, but we replace that with our selection. So we don't have the brush anymore. We replace the brush and we replace that with the points. And now if you click on one, it's just gonna filter that. Alright. Okay, it's not too bad. Beverly Hills Cops 2, 3 both get 46 and 10. Okay, that's pretty fun. But okay, let's keep it there. I still want to show you how you can add a circle onto the rectangle. So I want to maybe kind of like how we did the text, and then we use the text and then we build on top of that. We can do the same thing here. We're gonna say circ, just stands for circle. I'm gonna say rect mark point, and we're gonna have encode. So what do we want to have here? So for the color, we're just gonna have odd.color. We can say color value. I feel like we can just short form to value, and we say gray. But since we use light gray up there, we might as well be consistent and just stick to light gray. And we can also have a side. Let's actually make sure all of this works first. And let's maybe transform filter as well. Say PTS, save that. Get down to rect and maybe try to add circ. Save that. And there we go. So if you save this, all right, now it's working. Great. All right, let's move back out. I want this bar looks a little bit tiny, so I want to make this bar something like before this selection. I want to say something like properties, and I want to set the width of, let's say, 700, make it larger. I don't need the quotation marks. 700. I want to have a height of, let's say, 300 or maybe 250. If it's not good, then we're just gonna eyeball it a bit. If it's not good, we're just gonna have to sort of change the value, tweak the value until it looks good on the eye, right? This looks alright. It's not the best, but it looks alright. The circles doesn't make sense because the size is not mapped to anything, but the size should actually matter, right? So we can map something. We can map the size here, and we can say odd.size, and we can use the count. So basically, that's just gonna count the number of the number of values in each bin. We're just gonna give it a legend as well, and we say legend equals to odd.legend. And we say title is selected, capital S. And I think this is looking more and more like it. You know what's really cool about Altair is you can actually click on this and you can save as PNG, you can view the source, and it will just give you the source. These are all this generates the Vega, and the Vega-like library is what used to generate this. So you can see the view the compiled Vega, you can open this in Vega editor, you can export this as PNG and SVG. Kind of a feature-rich library actually. A lot of this you get it for free. Number of movies selected. So if I click on this, then you see that this very intelligently changed. And if I click on this, you see that change again. So I can try and play around with some of this stuff here. But this is a pretty nice interactive dashboard, I think. We have ourselves with this, with the help of PyScript and the help of Altair, we got something quite good looking. So let's try and deploy all of this now. So then quit out. So once you deploy to GitHub, you also want to give it about 2 or 3 minutes for this to load up, right? But now you can click on things and bam, it's working. It's awesome. This is completely just using Python, of course with the help of Altair, which compiles to JavaScript, Vega-like. But you don't have to write any JavaScript. These are all just Python. You look at our code, and you realize that we're just really running Python in here. And I'm sure, with a bit more creativity, you can make things look a little bit better. Maybe give it its own color as well. Each one of them should have its own color as well. But yeah, now it's working. Everything is good, and it's deployed as well. So this is how you use PyScript deploy a dashboard using Altair and PyScript. And we're only getting started. So if you enjoyed today's tutorial, share it with a friend on social media, subscribe to the channel. Check out the rest of my playlist. I have a ton of things on data science, Python, blockchain, smart contract programming, and we're still not done with this series. We have a few more ideas, but if there's something you want to see, leave it in the comment section and let me know. As usual, subscribers count for twice as much vote. So that's all I have time for today. I hope you have a great day. Go ahead, build some cool projects. I'll catch you another time.